Thank you, everyone. It's now time to move to an important conversation that lies at the heart of modern marketing: owning the data future, building trust through privacy first marketing. In today's privacy conscious world, building trust through responsible data practices is more critical than ever. This session will explore how brands can navigate regulatory shifts, leverage first party data effectively, and foster deeper, more meaningful consumer relationships. Please welcome a marketing leader shaping impactful brand experiences, Anak Bhujane, Director, Integrated Brand Experience, Colgate Palmolive, India, in conversation with Meeta Gupta, Director, Client Servicing, the Trade Desk. I request Meeta to please take the lead in the conversation.
So hi Anaga, it's a pleasure to have you here, and thank you so much for joining me for a conversation which is not only very topical, everybody's talking about it, but it's something also very crucial and critical as the marketers are literally navigating the way, the future of advertising would look like, right? But before I really get into the how part of it, right, let's maybe talk a bit about why is it important to have audience at the core of your marketing strategy. And when we talk about CPG as a category, right, traditionally it has been more, thriving on more on mass appeal, focusing more on just the demographic targeting. But as the category is more becoming fragmented with more product innovation, do you see that shift, from that traditional channel first approach to now that switch coming back to more consumer first approach, more audience first approach?
I think from an FMCG perspective, most brands were always consumer first. But having said that, there is definitely fragmentation, and we are seeing the pros and cons of it, of course. A wider targeting continues to be critical to a lot of our brands, especially if you look at some of our brands. Our category has almost 99% penetration. It's in every household, literally, right? So for me, it's critical for me to have a wider scale. But having said that, there are newer brands where we are looking at which are more digital first, they're slightly more premium, or they are more innovative formats, for example, where it is critical for us to identify who is that right audience that I talk to, where I can drive more trials, more conversions, and that sort of starts becoming more, adoption rate goes up, right? And that's where we see a very distinct, there is a large scale, what I call a mass appeal approach, and then there is also a precision marketing leg that we definitely continue to do, which allows us to talk to a more appropriate audience, may not be at kind of a large scale, but talk to them with the right intent, with the right content, build better relevance, and hence get faster down the funnel. And that's really where deterministic signals, partners like DSP, partners like you guys, have a very, very critical role to play for us.
And as we talk about more of precision, those sharp signals, right? A lot of marketers and brands, they're moving more towards having their own first party data, as soon as they would want to kind of start this journey of building their own first party data. What do you think, what can be those initial few steps that any brand or any marketer can take to set the foundation and then, begin to scale up?
So from a first party data lens, I think for the first thing is whenever anyone says first party data, everyone assumes it's PII data. I need to know your phone number, I need to know your email address. But sometimes we lose track of there is an known and unknown factor as well. I think one of the first things is, are we doing enough with even the unknown first party that we collect? The kind of people who are coming to my website, I'm collecting cookies regularly, I'm doing not much with that. But to take a larger look at what first party can do, some of the foundational things that we also learned was to really to sort of pause, to slow down, take a larger view, get absolute clarity on objectivity on why you want to do it. The first critical things that we unlocked and that has really worked for us is the value exchange. So instead of going at it by saying, I want to collect your data, for example, if I stop and question, why would you want to give your data to me? And that really changes the way you look at it. That's what makes it consumer first. That's what makes it a part of the larger experience versus data for data's sake. And that was the big shift that we also took.
I think there's also this misconception that any brand can start their first party data as a strategy only if it is they have scalable data, right? What are your views on it? How can people who just have a very small portion of their first party data, how can they start leveraging it?
So I think it's a daunting task, especially in the world of CPG, because we're used to operating at that kind of scale. When you start talking about numbers in thousands, it doesn't mean much. But it just really takes the few thousands to start understanding better, to have multi-dimensional understanding of your consumers. But if you start looking at it as your seed audience, that's just the starting point. The ability to work with partners, data alliances that give me enrichment, that give me potential to find more people like this and do the entire lookalike expansion. Work with retail partners that can give me more purchase-led signals that can help me enrich that data further. The multiplier is what we need to work towards. It's not the seed audience. And that's really and hence, I don't think it's the scale, it's what you do with it what is more critical.
And I think that's where your second party data or your third party data, like you spoke about retail, that plays a very important role to at least begin from somewhere, from just spray and pray to start bringing in more precision to your audience targeting there. And with that, so far we know historically the deployment has been kind of more skewed towards the walled garden, and now that shift is also changing because it comes with its own limitation of not passing back those signals back to the advertisers or letting them own the data which rightfully belongs to the marketers, right? How do you see what role open internet is currently playing for marketers to start building onto and scale their first party data with more of data interoperability, pass back of data to the advertisers who are the rightful owners of it? So how do you think you can leverage it?
So first things first, keeping true to audience first, right? If I want to go where my consumer is, then open internet is a critical part. I think more and more consumers are spending time on open internet. There's a lot more content that they engage with. So for us, what open internet does as a partnership truly is the multi-dimensional information. It's like a data mosaic. Like I can work with you, for example, and through you, I can work with publishers which allow me to layer interest or affinity signals on top of my first-party data. I can work through you with retail extensions and look at purchase or cart information, at least browsing data, for example. And then the content itself that is getting viewed. This three-dimensional part gives me a better understanding of my audience. I could have started by saying this is a person who probably bought toothpaste in the last 3 months, but I don't know anything more beyond that. And this allows me to enrich that data. It allows me to start talking to you contextually. So for example, if I know there's a certain segment that has interacted with, say, wedding preparation content, and then I can start talking to you with a toothpaste that is in the space of whitening. That sort of completely changes how I approach it, versus I would have spoken to you not knowing all this, I would have pushed some other toothpaste to you, right? So the ability to do that, we've launched something new called Colgate Visible White Purple. Now, for me, if I'm trying to position this as a beauty product, I start looking at contextual content where you're reading about beauty, where you're reading about, say, something to do with Korean beauty. Can I interject there and talk to you in a more relevant manner and hence have better connection and engagement? Those are the things that'll help us with open internet.
And I think it's building the relevance, but also kind of bringing scale to it. That also is what is helping.
It's scale in the right environment. I think that's how I would put it.
I think that's very aptly put there, Anaga, and would definitely love to hear your views on where would you place, today Colgate Palmolive when we talk about in its maturity curve today? Where are you with your first party data strategy?
So we've gone through a journey. I think if I look at it objectively today, we've gone through a series of experiments. We've worked with different partners. We've explored internal ecosystems and infrastructure. I would say today we are at an advancing stage. We have way past experimenting. Now we really are on a sort of a crawl, walk, run kind of a framework. I would say we're in the walk phase, where a lot of what we experimented had now become back into a BAU kind of an approach. So we're working with our partners where we set up drip campaigns. There's regular engagement across email, SMS, and WhatsApp touch points. So I would say we're at an advancing stage. Long way to go from a CPG lens.
Yeah.
But there is a conscious effort in that becoming a part of our audience ecosystem. I think that's what's critical. So one of the things that we changed is the way we look at our audiences. So there is core brands where we obviously talk to mass audiences, more wider approach. But then there are these products where we have an inverted pyramid. So for example, can I build sufficiency for my first party data first? Bring in lookalikes, do everything that I can do there. Then a next layer would be partner with DSPs, second party data, which has very strong deterministic signals, and then layer up to eventually interest and affinity if required. And that sort of has become our now, the flywheel, the data flywheel that we've sort of created.
And how do you see the difference in, more on performance side of it, right? Where you're leveraging these data signals vis-a-vis, let's say when you go more broad with your audience targeting. Do you see a difference there in terms of performance?
I think we've stopped comparing that. So the big difference is the objective with which we set out. When I'm looking at a broader audience, what I'm trying to do is build more affinity. I'm trying to build a long-term brand. There are different reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing. And as an advertiser, we've consciously also built our content differently for this. And we have an entire journey, what we do for attention, what we do for mental availability versus what I do for consideration and conversion. So the objectives are so different that we've consciously decided there's no comparison. Here's what I'm going to do for X, and here's what I'm going to do for Y. And within that set, I'm just looking at improving every day.
I think that's a great way to look at it, because usually, at times what brands tend to do is digital is because it's the nature of the platform, which is so measurable. We tend to just make it more precise, more niche, rather than kind of start leveraging it more, building those or moving those mind metrics like you spoke about. And of course, having talking about the first party data, this privacy is something that as a topic we could never really leave if you're not talking first party data, right? What do you think? Like, is it a lot of times you also see it as a barrier, when we talk about with more privacy laws kind of coming into the play? Do you see this as still a restriction, or maybe more as a launch pad to engage with your audience in a more immersive manner, more personalized way? How do you look at it?
So for us at Colgate, obviously we're putting our consumers first, and with that intent we'll also want to ensure that we have their buy-in on what we do with their data. Consent is critical part of our marketing design. It's not a barrier. I mean, yes, a lot of people feel that it adds layers, and the moment you start adding layers, your consumers sort of drop out. But consent is the first point of engagement with my consumer. And if I look at it like that, and if I'm engaging with them correctly, it only gets better from there. So it's a part of the entire experience calendar for us.
So earlier you also spoke about creating that value exchange, for your consumer. So how do you do with a brand like Colgate? What value, do you create for your consumers so they feel it as if, less intrusive and they're more open to sharing?
So this was a real struggle for us, and me personally as well, because we took a conscious call to slow down, reassess, and identify what could be a good value exchange. And when you're in a category like oral care, largely toothpaste and toothbrushes, where a large part of my sales are from a 10 rupee and a 20 rupee pack, what can I give you? But what we've realized is that there isn't enough conversation on oral hygiene. And last year, we started this journey with Oral Health Movement, where we identified our ability to connect with our audiences, answer a few questions, and share a few images of the teeth, and that would give you a oral health score with an assessment of probably your score is a 3 or a 5 and you have high risk of cavities. And that really unlocks a conversation. And we had a partnership where we could then forward it to a dentist visit, et cetera, et cetera. So there's an entire campaign around it. And what it did was it helped us connect with our audiences meaningfully. And that was the value exchange that really worked for us. We ran that campaign for a while. We had about 4.5 million audiences that shared not just their phone numbers, but 8 questions were answered, photos were shared. So it was the first time that we not only cracked the value exchange, but we started with enriched data itself. It was not just phone number and email.
I think that's a very impactful move to, get your audience hooked onto the brand. And with that, if I have to give you that one magic wand, something that you would like to bring in when we talk about more of audience-first approach or any changes you feel, that the industry should be moving towards, what do you think that would be for you?
I still think that measurement, while we say digital is so easily measured, it is also so easily confused because we end up looking at metrics which are limited to platforms, limited to everything you'll bring it down to reach, VTR, CTR, etc. Right? I think the ability to really, as an industry, bring wider measurement. What does this do for my brand? How can I look at different platforms coming together? We don't have a singularity of measurement on digital, and that I think if I get that.
Yeah. I think more of when you say singularity, it's more about also it's time to kind of start consolidating your media buys through one platform so that you can get that one view of your audience and the journey there.
Because today it's still disconnected, right? At the end of the day, I have walled gardens and then I have programmatic approaches. So there are measures and then there are estimations, but truly can I give my consumer a frictionless singular approach, a journey? That's not really there as yet in our industry.
Definitely that would be an ideal world for us. But thank you so much, Anaga, so openly, sharing your views around it, and good to know for marketers here that even if you have that small bit of your first party data, you shouldn't stop there. I mean, you can leverage it from the get-go and start expanding and scaling it. Thank you so much, Anaga, for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks to both of you. I would request you to please remain on stage and Mayank Sharma from Digitool to please present the token of appreciation. Thank you, everyone.